What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome. It's been an eventful Tuesday morning, and yeah, we're off and running. Let's just make sure this thing is working, and we've got sound. There were some issues earlier. Some people were a part of that, but we're moving on to that. The news of the day is is that the Jets' big time defensive coordinator is now the Jets head coach. The guy the Niners tried to hire in the offseason, Jeff Ulbrich, has become the new interim head coach of the New York Jets. And the reason is because the Jets fired former 49ers defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. That's the actual news. That's the actual news. The question is Kyle Shanahan going to pick up the phone and go, bro, I told you. I tried to hire Ulbrich. We tried to get Ulbrich off on through an escape hatch this offseason. You wouldn't let me have Ulbrich. We thought he was going to get fired. You got fired, and now Ulbrich's the head coach, and you're on the streets. You know, the question first that everyone asks is, are they going to do this? Does it make any sense to bring in Robert Saleh? And the answer is they are going to investigate whether it makes any sense to bring in Robert Saleh. Because think about the origin story of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. The origin story of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch leads us to a conclusion that should always be your conclusion. If there's something weird going on out there, you're like, are the Niners going to investigate this? The conclusion is always, yeah, probably. And the reason goes back to the origin story that Kyle Shanahan got the job and John Lynch was doing television. He was a Hall of Fame player, but he'd never been in the front office. And he called him up and said, you know what? I think I'd be a good GM for you. And Kyle said, okay. And I think you have to use that. That should always be in the back of your head. Like, they will turn over every stone. They will try things that seem non-traditional. If it's gonna result in getting talent in the building, they're gonna look into it. They're gonna call Bill Belichick. They're gonna try and get Aaron Rodgers, even if it means upsetting Matt LaFleur. Right? They're gonna look in Aaron Rodgers, even if it meant upsetting a friend. And last year was interesting because there was this kind of smoke on Steve Wilks early in the year that it wasn't working. And internally, we know that they had the same impression. They believe the same thing. And part of the external smoke was some of the things that got said by Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. So I say that to say they know internally right now whether or not it's trending in the right direction or the wrong direction with Nick Sorensen. Right? On the outside, we're like, what's going on here? Who's responsible for this? Is this going well or not? Doesn't feel like it's going well. Well, internally, they already know. Just because last year, a month in, they already knew where it was trending on Steve Wilks. And right now, they have a real. Kyle knows, right? Remember, Kyle showed us last year he's willing to jump into defensive meetings. By the way, I do have to tell you real quick, their sponsor of the show. You got to get them in the first 3 minutes of a quick video. PrizePicks code GUY. Right now, you go to PrizePicks, you put in $5. When you make a lineup, you immediately get $50 into your account. It's very easy. You just pop right in. You go, give me Jordan Mason, less than 82.5 rushing yards on Thursday. Give me Brock Purdy, more than 253.5 passing yards on Thursday. Give me Jaden Daniels, more than 220.5 passing yards against the Ravens this week. I just made that lineup in 8 seconds, right? And you put in a lineup is just 2 or more players, up to 7. So you could change it around. You're like, you know what? I like more on Jordan Mason. Seahawks have forced 4 fumbles this year, by the way, something to be aware of. But anyway, you go to PrizePicks. It's fun. It's quick. It's easy. Sun's coming out. Code GUY. And you put in $5, you immediately get $50 into your account. This is a situation that Kyle Shanahan has not really been in yet, right? We haven't experienced this. You get it with older coaches, and Kyle, while he's been a head coach for a fair amount of time now, he hasn't been a coach long enough that we find out what happens to his coaching tree. The story on his coach, and Mike Silver just wrote a book, right? But the story on the coaching tree still has yet to be written. Matt LaFleur is still the coach of the Packers. McVay is still the coach of the Rams. DeMeco Ryans just got his job with Houston. It's going well. What's going to happen with Mike McDaniel? Been a while since I've said his name, in Miami. And there's, you got your kind of secondary, tertiary coaching tree. You got Kevin O'Connell out there. He's doing well. But the point is, we haven't seen yet what really happens when ex-Shanahan head coaches become available to Kyle again. Like, does Robert Saleh want to coach with Kyle Shanahan again? Does Kyle Shanahan want Robert Saleh back? I think the answer to that is most definitely. But I do wonder, and I've wondered this about Mike McDaniel mostly. Working for Kyle Shanahan is a career-changing, life-changing experience in a very positive way. But when you get your own team, do you want to come back and work for Kyle? And Robert's not going to be the litmus test for this because we don't know exactly if he's going to fit back in. I think the beauty of Kyle, probably, if you're a defensive coordinator, is if he trusts you, he leaves you alone. He doesn't want to be involved. Being Kyle Shanahan's special teams coach would be amazing. He doesn't even watch your plays unless something happens. But we just haven't had this yet. So it's very unique. And the question is, like, does Robert know immediately right now? If Robert thinks I may want to be a head coach and I want to wait on that, then Robert's got a big family, made a lot of money, high pressure situation with the Jets. Does he want to jump back into it? I thought it was interesting. Connor Rogers from NBC, and is a big Jets guy. When Robert Saleh, when the news broke, Connor Rogers posted on X, he said this: the Jets have had an energy problem this year, and it starts with Saleh. Even I'm surprised by this, but it's been that bad in a win now season. And so you think, well, did something change with Robert, or did something change with Robert's team? And I think it's not that Robert changed, although I'm sure the Jets can suck the life out of you. But Aaron Rodgers showed up. And it may be that Aaron's would prefer to have his energy than your energy, right? Some people call that an energy vampire. I've heard that phrase. I think it's a great phrase. It's really hard. It's really hard. And I think the great thing about Saleh, and we saw this with D'Amico a little bit, but definitely with Robert, who was more demonstrative even than D'Amico, they both did a great job of growing as big personalities, not overriding Shanahan, but also creating a little bit of a different dynamic than the one that Kyle creates, right? Kyle's energy is very steady, stoic. Some would say leans negative, which I love, actually, but in a team building way, right? Like I always go back to, and I've played it before, and it really resonated with me several years ago. Kyle did an interview with Rich Eisen, and he explained his personality, and I thought it was really illuminating. And he told a story about getting to the Bay Area and home shopping with his wife, and they're going through they're looking for homes, and they're going through some house, and his wife loves it. She says, "What do you think?" And Shanahan starts listing off all of the things about the house that he hates. And as he's telling the story, he says, my wife's almost in tears. She's like, "Why do you hate this house?" And Kyle says, "I don't hate this house. I love this house. What are you talking about? That's just how I think." And I thought it was a really great window into his personality. When you watch Robert Saleh, Saleh would walk to that house and just be like, "Oh, I love this. I love that. I love this. I love that." And I think the Niners benefited from that energy. And part of it is Kyle trusted him. Aaron Rodgers didn't feel like there was a lot of trust there. You got to keep his OC around. They make you fire your OC. You got to draft Zach Wilson, whoever's decision that was. So I say all that to say, if you're Robert Saleh, I think you're thinking, if you're his agent, you're thinking, we could be a head coach again. Like, are we really getting blamed for this? How much are we getting blamed for this disaster? And does that affect whether or not he wants to go back and coach with the 49ers? Now, going to the 49ers this year doesn't mean you immediately become the defensive coordinator. So you're really not locking yourself in. And while it's a little weird to add a guy midstream, things like this happen all of the time. It's not that crazy to bring in somebody mid-season to just kind of help out. Somebody becomes available, you trust them, you bring them in, right? If you took away, oh, they got Brandon Staley in the background, that makes it weird. Really? You're going to make decisions based on whether or not it's weird for Brandon Staley, who showed up like 8 months ago and may not be on this staff next year? No. Okay. So anybody who goes like, well, the Brandon Staley, no, put that aside. You're not worried about that. Well, it makes it a little weird for Nick Sorensen. Now that's real, but you know internally, whether it's weird or not, forget weird. Like, we're trying to win now. We have to win football games. So would it help Nick Sorensen? Would it help our defense? Would it help our team? Is Robert Saleh a smart guy? Does he understand what we're trying to do? Does he have a good relationship? Would he be a positive or a negative? Well, I think the great thing about Robert Saleh, one of them, in addition to being a good coach, is he is a positive personality and influence. So as you think about all of the moving parts, you just have to simplify it. Is adding Robert Saleh a net positive or a net negative? All right, well, what's the negative? Well, it makes it a little weird for Nick Sorensen. That's true. Does it change? Does the defense, do the players lose confidence in Nick? The players' confidence is whatever it is. It's either high right now or it's low. So in the end, my guess is Robert Saleh coming out of a very awkward situation. I don't know exactly what you would do with him in terms of like, are you making him your coordinator right away? No, you're not. But he's a net positive in the end if he wants to do it. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan, I go back to what I said at the beginning. I don't think Kyle Shanahan, just think about it. Like, is his first thought what makes our team better? Or is his first thought, I don't know, could be a little awkward? Ask yourself that question. And when you answer that question with no, his first thought is what makes this team better, then you have your answer. So all of that, what I'm saying is it comes down to what Robert Saleh wants to do. Because I think they'll call. And I think people are going to get a little hung up on awkward because but it's really not that. First of all, who cares? Secondly, I don't think it is that awkward, actually. Those guys know each other, A. And B, this does happen in football pretty frequently. Now, what's different about this is it usually doesn't happen on October 8th. It usually happens like, late December. Somebody got fired. Let's bring that guy in. He's going to help us out. Just do some self-scouting for the postseason. That type of stuff happens. But, it usually just doesn't happen in October, which is a gift. It's a gift. Don't look at the negatives when something like this happens. Look at the potential positives. And I think there's a lot of potential positives here. And, the X factor is what's going on inside that building. Because you can look at it both ways. And I think the two different ways you look at it, you still end up at the same conclusion, which is bringing Robert Saleh around as a positive, right? So what are the two ways you look at it? The one way is to say, right now, people are not quite sure, I'm talking internal. Right now, they're not quite sure if Nick Sorensen has the answers, so it could make it weird. Well, no, if he doesn't have the answers, then Robert Saleh can help. The other path is they actually are confident internally that Nick Sorensen is going to get this thing right. Like, if you went in there right now and they're all thinking or saying, no, Nick's, we haven't been great. We got some stuff to figure out, but this dude is like, he's going to get there. Just like it took Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh didn't hit the ground clear cut. There were some questions, is Robert Saleh going to last as defensive coordinator? So I do think it's fair to say, hold on, everybody. It's been 5 weeks. Let's let Nick Sorensen figure this out. If that is how they feel inside, then you can still add Robert Saleh because they got confidence in the guy. Robert Saleh walking in the room isn't going to split their loyalty, their attention, their confidence, all that sort of stuff. And by the way, there's a lot of players who were not here with Robert Saleh. So maybe they give Nick Sorensen the first shot at earning their confidence anyway. So to me, either path, there was a way to bring Robert Saleh in and make it work. Is it risky? I'm not going to act like there's zero risk when you do something like that. But in the end, if the opportunity to add brain power presents itself, especially a guy you trust, a guy that understands you, you do it. a guy that you think, part of it is about who Robert Saleh is, being able to step into the building. What does he do? Right? How does he handle it? How does he present himself? Does he undercut Nick Sorensen if he's just a consultant? What does he do? We know Nick Sorensen was not their first choice, the defensive coordinator. They tried to hire Jeff Ulbrich, which, like, to me, it was risky in the sense that it's risky to try to hire Ulbrich if you think you're going to end up on Sorensen, because the odds that you actually get Ulbrich are really low, right? The Jets are going to have to let him out of the contract. Comment, they should do their due diligence at the very least when it comes to Saleh. Lots of positives. They will, right? They are definitely making that phone call. It's what they do. They investigate everything. And I think it comes down to Saleh. There was another comment here that I wanted to where was this? Somebody said they're not afraid. I'm sorry, I can't give you credit because these comments are flying in. I'm looking forward to give you credit. Somebody said they're not. Oh, here. No, that's not it. Somebody said they're not afraid of awkward. Look at what they did with the quarterbacks. Yeah. Now, the one thing I hate about this topic is that everybody's going to say you should bring him in. If somebody says don't bring him in, then I'm interested in that too. Send the jet. Here's a comment. You have to be realistic. We're going into a rebuild with Purdy. I don't think they're in a rebuild, but I also, like, to me, that's a negative comment. I think. I don't know. To me, when I say negative, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it comes from a place of like, we're in trouble, right? That's what it feels like. Maybe I'm wrong. But they're not going to. There's no rebuild. But I do think there's two different ways to look at Brock, and the way I choose to look at Brock is he's a top 10 quarterback. He's going to get paid. That opens up your window. It doesn't close your window. Comment. I think it comes down to how the Seattle game fits. Well, I think they're winning Thursday in Seattle, and they're going to be in first place in the NFC West, as crazy as that is. Now, they can't end up in a tie with the Cardinals as long as they don't have that tiebreaker. But I don't think it comes down to Seattle. I mean, they could go dominate Seattle. To me, let's just say you go dominate Seattle. Let's say your defense looks amazing. If you want Robert Saleh and Robert Saleh wants to come, you still bring in Robert Saleh. But here's the question is, like, has Kyle Shanahan whiffed on one defensive coordinator hire or two? Roy says refit, as the Navy says. I'm not familiar with that, but I can tell there's something there that I like. So is that instead of rebuild, you refit? What context is the Navy using that in, Roy? I really like that. A refit. Refit? That's good. You can't handle the hard truth. Kyle Shanahan can't finish. Son? I mean, yeah, it hasn't been good. He hasn't finished Super Bowls. He didn't finish against the Rams and the Cardinals. But also, let's not be dumb here. Like, the reason the Cardinals game and the Rams game are so alarming is because they're not what is normal for him. His entire career history says he finishes that game. And I've got a theory on that, which I don't have time for today, right now, but I'll get to later. But the idea that, like, the Cardinals game proves he can't finish. No, the Cardinals game proves there's something weird going on because he always finishes the Cardinal game. The problem is not that he never puts away a team when he has a 10-point lead in the regular season. It's against the Chiefs. So, if you think that's pathetic, whatever. I mean, the guy's a top 5 NFL coach with a flaw right now that keeps him from winning Super Bowls. But, the idea that you're going to start freaking out Big. You want to freak out on the season over losing the ring? Absolutely legit. Fine. And I think he's making kind of a mistake right now, which I'll get to. But the idea that it's a full referendum on him as a football coach and that you need to go find somebody better. Good luck. Do we think Kyle finished breakfast this morning? I see what you're getting at there. I don't think he really. My guess is he's not a big breakfast eater. My guess is it's like 3 cups of coffee before any food gets in his belly. Comment from Charlie. Kyle is loyal to his coaches. Is Kyle loyal to Nick if he continues to improve? If Sorensen continues to improve? Well, let's say there's a scenario where Saleh's back this year. Let's say they do that. I've seen coaches. There are definitely coaches out there who, if they think they've got a coach in a role, an assistant in a role that he's not capable of, they fire him. And then there's others that just put him back in the role that you see it a lot in college where like the O-line coach gets promoted to offensive coordinator. This happened several years ago at Utah with Kyle Whittingham, right? Similar. Kyle Whittingham, long tenure, established guy, a lot of equity. He promoted his offensive line coach to offensive coordinator. It didn't go well. So what did he do? He just hired a new offensive coordinator and moved his offensive coordinator back to offensive line coach. So you could, to me, that feels like Kyle's vibe. Or Nick Sorensen improve, it gets better and it's all good and he stays as defensive coordinator. That's possible too. I don't think the book is written on Nick Sorensen. Just 4 weeks in, I know last year, 5 weeks in, people thought oh, it's open and shut. It's over with Wilks. And I think that probably was the case then, but that was different. He was an outsider who Kyle kind of took a chance on and regretted it in some ways. I mean, like I said, they almost won the Super Bowl. They were going to fire Steve Wilks after a Super Bowl win too. But Nick Sorensen's not from the outside. Nick Sorensen's from the inside. So, I think that would be a different situation. And I also think I don't think we know that ending yet. I'm open-minded on, can Sorensen get to a place where everybody feels great about it, and maybe Robert Saleh can help him. I mean, that's how you would sell it to him, right? You'd say, hey man, look, this is going to help. And he'd be like, all right, well, I already got Staley in the back of the room. We'll get Staley to do so. Staley will move to scouting the offense. Cause you know what? Kyle could use that. Hey, Brandon, can we do a study on the red zone? Can we go watch how the Cowboys finished? The Cowboys got it done. Mike McCarthy, Guy always says Kyle's better than McCarthy. McCarthy ran the 2 minute. McCarthy went down and scored. They scored. You see all that stuff the Chiefs did on Monday night? Cowboys did it Sunday night. They came back and won. You see what the Chiefs did on Sunday night? Direct snap to Kelsey, handing it off to Xavier Worthy. Can we do some of that? Can we mix it up in the red zone? That would be my assignment for Brandon Staley right now. Go scout our red zone plays and tell me what I can do better, because we're not scoring touchdowns in the red zone. That's a problem. Oh, here's a great idea. Move Sorensen to special teams. Gorshak says this sets up Belichick to the Jets next year, right? Right. It sure does. It would be one of the great makeups in the history. And now, does Bill hate the Jets enough to not take that job? I think there will be options for Belichick next year. And I think if you're Bill, he wanted the Atlanta job. I think every year you have to be on alert for McVay, right? Ever since McVay almost left in his 30s to go do Thursday Night Football, you just have to be on alert at any given time. Is McVay going to walk away? So Belichick would absolutely fit with the Rams, right? And Atlanta would have been interesting. I mean, every NFL job is a high-profile job. Every NFL job, if you win, becomes a bright lights job, right? You could go to the Panthers, make them good, and you're going to be on primetime 5 times. But the Jets is a certain type of high profile that I think a certain level of juice and pressure that Belichick versus the New York media, I think he would like that in addition to, but they got to have a quarterback. Like if you're Bill, do you want it? You already did the thing where you try to replace a great quarterback. So what do you do? That's tough. Like if you're Belichick, I would not want to step into a spot. And we'll see how this thing finishes for them, but all right. Oh, everybody's yelling at each other, which is great. We're fired up about this. Okay, everybody. I've got more coming later today. I got some stuff I want to say about, I think the Niners there's something they're doing that I don't like right now, which I'll get to later today, as well as some Brandon Ayuk stuff. But I think things will work out for Robert Saleh in his career. I think it's going to be all right for him in the big picture. And that may be coming back here, but I think if you're him, you don't have to. I will say that. I don't think he's got to come back here. It wouldn't shock me if somebody else tried to make him head coach, but I wouldn't. I'm not saying it's going to happen. It just, I think he interviews well. I think he's a good dude. Jets are weird. All right. That's all for that. We will talk soon. To everybody who joined the first version of the stream today that didn't have audio for 10 minutes and has since been wiped from the internet, shout out to you. You're special. Thank you. All right. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel.